Hello, kia ora, I'm Philip Duncan. Thank you so much for joining us for our weekend weather update, recorded on Friday, November 4th. We're tracking some big areas of high pressure coming out of Australia and towards New Zealand, but also up in the tropics. Low pressure is starting to dominate now that La Nina is peaking. Let's have a look at the animated wind map. Look at this giant area of high pressure. It's drifting in from Adelaide towards Victoria and on towards New Zealand this weekend. Before it arrives in New Zealand, there's a cooler southerly change. You might have noticed the temperatures last night a little cooler than they were just one night earlier. That's because of that southwest change that's come out of that big area of high pressure. There's a little bit of low pressure to the north, nothing too major around Australia, but there's a little bit of rain up here in the top end. Let's have a look now at the thunderstorms when we recorded this. Pretty quiet on the map, only a few up around the Northern Territories. Otherwise, it's fairly settled, and a few thunderstorms up here near Vanuatu, but otherwise, nothing really going on at the moment. It's pretty quiet, and that's due to that big area of high pressure that's rolling in at the moment. So southerlies before it here on Saturday in New Zealand. So we've got some cooler nights coming up for some of you around the country, especially inland areas and to the south. But otherwise, the afternoons are warm, and don't forget, the UV rays are extreme now in most parts of the North Island and very high in parts of the South Island, and it's a similar story. The northern half of Australia extreme, the lower half in the very high category. So we're into that time of year. Plenty of showers with the southeasterlies up around Queensland, but otherwise dry in most places on Saturday. Sunday's not too different. There's an area of low pressure in Western Australia, but it's not doing very much. Got a couple of showers through the hills, and over in New Zealand, a similar story, a couple of showers bubbling up inland. Otherwise, high pressure is dominating. But let's go into the rainfall as we kick off next week, because there is a low pressure system coming down from the subtropics, and it's going to potentially brush northern New Zealand. I say potentially because you've got that low coming in and you've got that big high also trying to bulldoze it away at the exact same time. I'll show you that in a moment. But the rainfall totals up here just brushing that eastern area, anywhere between 20 and about 35 millimetres in that northeastern corner. That's not a huge amount of rain. So let's take a look at lunchtime Monday. There is that area of low pressure, but also there is this big block of high pressure on either side of New Zealand. So that system here, not necessarily going to come in and produce a lot of rain, but the other feature that's a little harder to sort of lock in, precise totals, are these downpours that might bubble up inland between those two areas of high pressure and next to that low. So there could be a few afternoon downpours that bubble up through the central North Island, and a few downpours also bubbling up through inland parts of New South Wales, ACT, Victoria, and even a bit of Queensland and Western Australia as well, a few of those afternoon downpours around. By Tuesday, that low trying to move in. This is why I'm saying it's borderline, because even if you look at the rain map, it is hugging that coastline to the north, and high pressure is right next to it. So if that high shrinks just a small amount, that rain comes in, and then the high just has to breathe out a little bit like lungs, and it pushes that rain away. There are a couple of other showers around on the eastern side of both nations, but nothing too dramatic in there. By Wednesday, high pressure still parked in the Tasman. It's not going to be a very changeable week next week in most places. That low pressure zone stretches out. So a lot of low pressure up here in the tropics, but still no sign of any major storm, so that's a good thing. And then over in Australia, the warm northerlies blowing through there. It'll be pretty hot by the middle of next week. And as we move in towards later next week, no great change, but your first burst of rain coming back in again looks pretty patchy. It doesn't look very major. So that's good news, I think, after all the extreme weather we've been seeing lately around both New Zealand and Australia. We've got a more settled period coming up. It's not entirely calm, it's not entirely dry, but it's a lot more settled than it's been, and still got low pressure up here just near New Caledonia and Vanuatu with downpours around that area. And we'll be keeping a close eye on the tropics. The cyclone season is now here. It's with us through till the end of April, so I'll be watching that. It usually peaks around February and March though, so not necessarily anything showing up just yet. That is all from me. Have a great weekend. Be safe with Guy Fawkes. Fireworks are already going off. If you live in Auckland, they go for about 5 days. So anyway, that's all around at the moment. Think of the animals, think of the pets, and we'll see you next week.